inferiority than listening to an argument.
How many videos of this guy, or not that this guy's me, how many videos of me is Hasan watching? What even is this video? I'm playing Balatro.
Authority. Oh man. Oh man, how did that happen? Here's the problem.
What's the problem?
That second voice that you're hearing in the background is Mudahar.
What?
He was just getting like emotional the whole time, dude. You seem to be such a brilliant orator, dude. Yeah. Oh, is it surprising to you that Mudahar took these idiotic stances? Also going along with the smear campaign against pro-Palestinian voices? Well, also, you know, still trying to maintain a presence where he's like, oh, well, I think, like, you know, I just don't like death, dude. How did that happen? Oh, man. Oh, man, how did that happen? Here's the problem.
Yeah?
People who don't want to fucking learn about anything, people who don't want to read about anything,
oh, not like
would
Hasan,
much rather
the
get
reader.
their information from this fucking dingus on screen. This fucking sex pest on screen. They like him. They think he's brilliant.
I mean, at least you can see me on stream reading stuff. When was the last time Hasan cracked a book open for anything? It's been at least a decade.
Has the capacity to present himself as much smarter than he actually is. That's all it is. So they respond to the optics of it. It's ironic because he did.
Like, yes, that's me. All optics. That's what I'm known for. Destiny, the guy you spam the genocide clip of over and over and over again. That's me. That's what they call me. Optics Andy. One of the most annoying things that I ban for in my chat is when people talk about how good I am on my optics, because I hear it so often. People love my optics. That's me. Hasan, you got me, Chief. Am I using way too many beacons? Fuck me, dude. I can't help it.
Did this against Jordan Peterson.
Two things that I liked from I think these were both from Space Age that should have been incorporated into the Factorio main branch is one, having containers of various sizes was just very nice. Now, maybe some people would argue you're solving problems that should be solved with logistics. I don't think it's trivializing anything. I think that it's stupid to solve for big boxes. Like, wow, good for you. And two, I like the beacon overload principle that a beacon could only, or a building could only be powered by one beacon at a time. I thought it made for much less, because otherwise when you play default Factorio, all of your designs end up looking like this, like 50 trillion fucking beacons. And it's like, really?
That's all it is. So they respond to the optics of it. It's ironic because he did this against Jordan Peterson so expertly all the time. I remember a time when Destiny used to shit on Jordan Peterson and his fan base aggressively because Jordan Peterson or Tim Pool or many other right-wing commentators would present themselves as like intellectual authorities on the subject matter that they were talking about when they very clearly didn't know what the fuck they were saying. And their fans believed them. Now he's been doing this for the past couple of years at this point. There is no better sign of your intellectual inferiority than listening to an argument, listening to a debate between two people and not actually seeing the veracity of the statements, not actually recognizing which side is presenting factual arguments, which side is
oh shit, I'll listen for like 30 more seconds. I just want to get to the part, because usually after Hasan does all of the weird personal insults and like obsesses over, you know, wishing he could play with my hair, whatever creepy other weird shit this guy's thinking about, he'll start digging into all of the things that I said or that were said that were factually incorrect. And it's my favorite part of the Hasan stream when he digs into all of the factual inaccuracies.
Presenting cherry-picked points and doing not such a great job at it either. And instead going, oh, well, he just seemed really emotional, so you lost. You won the argument, King. You were so unemotional.
Bro.
Like, he became obsessed with this talking point a while ago. I saw this on Twitter like a month ago. This is a talking point from like 2017. Where like the first person to get emotional in an argument is the one who lost. Like who, or maybe the Red Pillars did this a little bit, but like nobody is saying this anymore, Chief. Nobody in my audience or any of these audiences are like, oh, wow, this guy did such a great job debating because he didn't get emotional, bro. Like, that was the thing we were all looking for. Like, he's fighting shadows.
They have sources attached. He's not clicking on the source.
Well, and also I never read Wikipedia to him. I was just I was like quoting like either Amnesty International or the UN or the ICJ, but he was ultra triggered, but you know.
Yeah, but I read real books, not websites. I was fucking unhinged.
Oh, I know what he's doing right now. I don't even remember talking to Mudahar about this. I think I spoke to Mudahar one time about the Finkelstein debate. Hasan, remember, for Hasan, you can't not like Hasan. If you don't like him, there's something wrong with you. You're a chud. Or Destiny has brainwashed you. He's watching this to demonstrate to his audience, look, guys, this is the reason why Mudahar doesn't like the fact that I promote terrorists hijacking ships on stream. It's because he talked to Destiny this one time. That's why he's watching this right now. This year-old fucking video or whatever.
The funniest part about it is that Destiny is smarter than this. So I know in this moment, he has a little bit of fucking resentment towards who his allies are.
If I could choose at that table between Juan Rabbani, who is a disgusting pro-terrorist sympathizer fuck and a dipshit, Norm Finkelstein, who is the David Irving of Israel-Palestine, just a deeply unserious pop historian, okay, who publishes pop history slop, or Benny Morris, probably the preeminent Israeli historian when it comes to digging through original archival material and writing the record and adding to a lot of Israel's history of wrongdoings, especially around the 48 War and the Nakba. Benny Morris has probably been the historian to do the most work in fleshing out understandings of how many people were expelled, how many cities and villages were actually hit by the IDF, the Haganah at the time, rather than just people who fled because they heard that they needed to flee, right? You think I'm picking who at that table? You think I'm picking Finkel Dick? You think I'm picking Ween Rabbani? He means Mudahar? No, I understand. I'm just saying he's saying it's just funny for Hasan to say Destiny's got to feel bad about who his allies are. And it's like, well, in the debate that me and Mudahar are talking about, my ally there was Benny Morris. So I feel like if he's on my side versus those other two dipshits, I'm okay with that.
Like, he'll entertain it because at least someone is on his side, and this is like him licking his wounds. But you can tell he's just like, ugh.
Like, again, I don't ever like to jerk myself off. But Israel-Palestine is considered by many people to be one of the most complicated or whatever historical disagreements, like current geopolitical conflicts on the face of the earth. And in 6 months, I was able to get to a point, while also full-time streaming and traveling and doing everything else, to where I could sit across the table from supposedly the preeminent Western pop historian Finkelstein on it. And you think I come away from that feeling embarrassed? That the only major confrontational moment we had factually in that debate is one that I ended up being fully correct on? Like, you think I feel like, in what world would I ever feel humiliated from that debate? That's just an insane thing to think. What the fuck?
I don't even think he fucking likes Ethan. I think he probably thinks he's surrounded by fucking dumb fucks by his own perspective, because he thinks he has a heightened sense of his own intelligence where he just like he thinks he's super brilliant. And he's very narcissistic.
Okay.
So he probably fucking despises that there aren't any like genuinely intelligent people on his side on any of these issues. He'll take.
Ooh. I wonder if this is Hasan's insecurity speaking. If this is a big because Hasan doesn't have anybody. Well, that's not true. He has like his like Ryan Grimm, I guess. I don't know how many like scholarly type people Hasan is ever chatting with on his stream. He just brings on like smaller journalists that already agree with what he feels. But
take the help wherever he can get, and his fan base certainly uses Ethan like a fucking fleshlight. You know, uses him as a weapon basically.
Why won't you debate Hasan or Vaush or Nick? Hasan and Vaush, neither one of those will debate me. Me and Vaush haven't interacted in a long time, but those two decided to dodge me. For Nick Fuentes. I told Nick that if he was going to start blackballing me from events because he was so excited to be working with Kanye, that I probably wouldn't talk to him again. And he started blackballing me from events after he got to work with Kanye, so fuck him.
But you know, deep down inside, he's like, ugh.
Dude.
Look at his face. He's like, yeah, good point, Muda.
What Muda is a like a commentary YouTuber guy. Like I wouldn't even be going into this conversation expecting Mudahar to have some fully fleshed out, massively insightful opinion on Israel-Palestine anyway. Like I wouldn't have the capacity to even feel disappointed in this conversation because my expectations would be appropriate regardless. So it doesn't even, like, it's such a stupid.
Really brilliant point, man. Yeah, he surely was emotional. I definitely didn't get owned there.
These outlets always, of course, make sure to mention Hezbollah's U.S. designation as
Oh, he's watching Noah Samson's response video too. I thought he. Oh no, he did already watch this, but this is a 40-year-old clip. So okay.
a terrorist organization. Don't worry, guys.
Jesus, good one. Since you're accused of being a know-it-all and always thinking you're right, is there a moment that stands out to you being proven wrong in a debate? Yeah, but the only examples I can give now are pretty old. The problem is that at this point, I'm pretty well read into everything I go into debate. So my foundation of knowledge has gotten much higher. And unfortunately, the standards on the other side have gotten much lower. So it's been a while now since I feel like I've had a good conversation.
What you look like when you were 17 and you got caught masturbating, that is literally the facial expression of these people.
Wait, before this, oh boy.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
1 hour ago.
It's just a weird time for thinking and for discourse and for deciding what team you're on. It's like everyone's scared and scrambling, you know, do we go red or blue? And it's just the whole country's in this like weird state of disarray.
And it's very tribal. And you see it now as well, you know, now that the right is in political power, a lot of the people who kind of made their bones challenging the excesses of the left, they're afraid to say anything about the right as well.
Okay. This Constantine guy, okay, I feel like he might actually be a contrarian, okay? He has been dangerously based on his Twitter for like the past like 2 months, okay? I don't know if he actually is like whoever's in power, I'm just going to go against that person or whatever, or because he's not a grift, because I don't think there's much money to be made by sucking up to the left right now. But damn, his shit, he's standing hard on that, on like everything related to Ukraine and everything. I've seen that recently on his Twitter. It's like crazy, but I don't know.
Well, even though there's things to say, like, I don't know if you followed the Signal group.
It's kind of funny because the stupid thing Hasan says about debate only being obnoxious dunk farming is actually kind of true for a lot of other people. So when you approach the debates actually equipped with foundational knowledge of a topic and interest to discuss it, you just get disappointed constantly. That is true of all the Israel-Palestine debates that I had, including the ones with probably multiple PhDs. All of them sucked shit, except for, and I don't think he was right most of the time, the guy in my community, Axel12 or whatever. I enjoy those conversations. One is because he came to those convos generally in good faith, I would say. As good faith as I am. And then two, just because of the back and forth we had so much, like I ended up doing so much more research and, you know, reading so many more original material. I don't know if I can say original material since it's translated, but like reading through stuff as a result of my conversations with him. Those conversations were better than the totality of, even my debates with Lonerbox were better than the totality of any person that I spoke with. Man, dude, fuck, the Israel Jewish shit is just crazy, man. I'm gonna be honest too, okay? Not knocking anybody, but like when I would see, like it got to the point to where if there was source material and I saw it published and I saw the name of the author and I'm like, oh boy, okay, PhD, Arab scholar on our history here, let's go. And like 90% of the time, it was the most unhinged, retarded shit I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I don't know, man. I'm just glad I'm not Jewish. God, I love being a white male. Yes! Wait. Where's my master racers at? Hold on. How many white males in the audience? Me, yes, I am. No, my identity sucks. Let's go. Let's go. It better be 80% plus. If you're Jewish, also answer no. Jews are no on this. Jews are no. Are Italians white? If you have to ask if you're white, then put no. You don't count. $73, 74%. Guys, what's going on here? I thought my Europeans would help me power through this. The fuck? Mark Lamont was decent. Well, I think a lot of what he believed was kind of crazy, but Mark was probably the best of all the formal conversations I had.
Thing.
Yeah, I did. I don't know enough about it, but it does seem like there's people that suspected it was a setup. That guy was added to the chat on purpose.
Well, I think
Is that true?
I don't think so. I think
Thank
the
you,
guy who
Constantine.
added him has basically said like it was our mistake, and the
So
White
it's
House.
just a mistake.
I don't think the investigation has been done to say definitively,
It
but
will
I
never
think
be.
the
It
White
will
House
never
said
be.
we're
It will
looking
never
into
be.
this.
It will never
but
be.
Tulsi, I think, said it was a mistake. I think Mike Waltz said it was a mistake.
Such a crazy mistake.
Yeah.
That's such a checks and balances mistake. Like double check.
Yes.
It's like, you know, when you go on the road, like,
Yeah.
do I have my toothbrush?
Yeah.
Do I have my underwear? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I even make a note on my phone now. I'm like, I'm too stupid. I always forget something. I was like,
Yeah.
fuck,
Yeah.
my this.
You know, it's kind of like adding your ex-girlfriend to the boys' WhatsApp group.
Some of the memes have been incredible.
That's exactly what it's like. Dude, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Jesus. Can you imagine you're on some like debauched shit with your boys and you've been going off on a night and then all of a sudden you see on the bottom like Sarah is typing ... And you're like, "Oh no." You're like, "Oh shit."
That's
Yeah.
exactly.
That's the normie equivalent to a streamer when somebody's like, "Hey, you know I'm live, right?" And you're like, "Oh shit." And your life flashback is like, "Wait, what the fuck? What have I been talking about? What did we just say?" That's the
Incredible.
That's exactly what it's like. Dude, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it's like. That's such a perfect analogy. Like, you fucking idiot. They're all on the phone afterwards. What the fuck, bro? Like, you know, Pete Hegseth swears.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah. You know she's gonna talk.
But how about the fact that they said that they didn't share any information about weapons or like what was the exact quotes? What did they say? So what they were basically doing was explaining how some shit was going to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were
Was it in Yemen?
they were debating how to do the strikes, whether to do them. There was some debate.
I don't want to build this manually. Give me a fucking nuclear power blueprint. Listen, why reinvent the wheel?
About that initially, and then initially this journalist, I think he's editor-in-chief of the Atlantic, I think he
He is like the worst guy to get this information
well
to.
absolutely
He
right.
was probably jerking off the whole time, salivating like yes.
Yeah, if you
Rock
had to
hard.
pick somebody, that is not who you pick, right?
He
But
must
you know,
be so pumped.
you know, we had an investigative journalist on the show, and we haven't released the episode yet, but as part of our after the show questions, he mentioned something which is, he said, I'm going from memory here, so Francis, correct me, but basically that Signal had been installed on government devices under the previous administration. So it may be the case that that guy's number had been pre-installed during that time. And because of that, the mistake was then made to add him to the group. So we
My guess is, I don't know if Signal does this, but I think my iPhone does this on fucking everything. I don't know if it was the same with my Android or not. But on your iPhone, every single like fucking app you have, every single app that I fucking have, when I go to like add somebody or message somebody, it always pops up like, hey, here's every other fucking person that in your phone book. And by the way, you don't know what your phone book is. It's actually a phone book across like 7 different apps that could possibly be on this app. And it's like, damn, bro, are people tracking my shit like this? What the fuck? Like, I don't need this shit in my life right now. How do you even know that I have the number for this other person on like Telegram? What the fuck? I bet it's something like that.
We don't know exactly what happened, but at the same time, what I'm saying is like the White House admitted it, and then they started having a go at the journalist. Like, that is not his fucking fault that you added him to the group, right? Do you know what I mean?
Not at all. What's he supposed to do? Tell you, hey guys, I've done that before. Hey guys, I think you sent this text to the wrong dude.
Yeah, yeah. A journalist is never going to do that, and that's not his job to do that either.
No.
True.
Yeah.
Like, listen to how many like reasonable good takes. It's not his job. That's absolutely true. It's not his job to do your job for you. He doesn't have to worry about that. That's your fuck up, dude. True.
One of those things that just happens accidentally.
Yeah.
But you can't have that happen when you're fucking planning bombs.
Agreed.
When you're planning war.
Agreed.
Like, first of all, it's so crazy that the government doesn't have its own
They do.
completely
They do. They
safe
do.
app.
They do.
do. Thank you.
What is it?
I
Yes!
think it's called a skiff or something like that. It's a special place where you go.
Okay, I can't tell if I like him or if it makes me hate these people even more. Oh, dude, especially this time with Tim Pool when I saw his old Reddit posts. Like, so he's not an idiot. Okay, he's not an idiot. He does understand some things, right? He has the ability to read or do something. Okay, where was this person for so long?
No, but that's a room. I mean an app.
Oh,
I
you mean an app? All right.
And who
why
cares?
did they
have
not
something.
have some encrypted super government app? You telling me that you couldn't get like a license from Signal to use the code? The government throws them. They like all these billions that are they're finding billions all over. There's
Well,
like
but
billions
they're
they've
really
cut. Like how many
not.
fucking
They're
billions
really
has Elon
not.
cut just from waste?
Like
just
none.
waste.
He says.
None.
Yeah.
It's
None.
crazy.
It's not that
and
crazy.
people aren't celebrating it. It's weird.
Well, put it this way, Joe. Until relatively recently, if not still, we use faxes in UK government.
Wow, that's crazy.
A lot of
There's a really good reason for that. But I don't know the reason. I'm just kidding. I have no idea if there's a good reason for that or not.
I think we got you one better. I think when people retire from what is it where they have to retire, where they have to write it down on paper and then it's stored in a vault?
in a mine. It's stored in a mine.
Yeah.
Social Security?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
on paper.
No, hold on. The mine shit is not Social Security. I thought that had to do with people retiring from government, that they store some shit somewhere on paper. But
It's in a mine.
I love that press conference as well because it's like Brett Baer from Fox interviewing Elon and like 7 other ASPI guys, and they're all just rattling off numbers. It's 10,000 filing cabinets, 400.
faxing is P2P, so it's much more secure than cloud-based shit. P2P, I've never had to pay to play. You don't have to pay per fax or whatever, unless you're on I'm just kidding. The only thing I don't understand, and it's just because I don't understand the architecture behind the scenes, I don't understand how you can make it so that there's not duplicate phone numbers. Or rather, like, why can't 2 SIMs exist with the same phone number? Is that, like, does the tower detect that somehow? Like, I have no idea how that works. Although I guess phone numbers might not necessarily be SIM stuff, but
1,000 paper documents.
people are saying you can. You're not supposed to be able to. If you are, it's through a hack. Because I've always asked, like, can I just have 2 SIMs? Dude, God, that would be so convenient. If I could share the same SIM between an Android and an iPhone, I would come constantly.
But when you look at it, it basically hasn't changed since the 1950s.
Yeah. I'm distracted by Brett Baer's hair. It's so beautiful. If I had that kind of hair, I would be so happy.
best
So
hair.
happy with myself. You can't see any scalp anywhere. It's just all hair. It's beautiful. It's like if you wanted to like put a wig on a bald guy, like you would make it like that. Like, bro, I'm gonna make you hot.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom has got incredible hair. Terrible policies, but amazing hair.
The government stores key retirement paperwork in a converted mine.
But you know
That's
what's
crazy. The limestone mine is real, and the Department of Government Efficiency's crosshairs. That is so insane. So now someone has to go in there and take all that stuff that's on paper in the mine and put it in a computer.
They're saying they're going to do it in 2 months. Digitize that in 2 months.
The new fluid dynamics give you the opportunity. You really spelled it like that? OPPERT, opportunity? I love it. The opportunity to just make one big block/line of turbines. There's no more advantage to having them close to the heat exchangers. One big turbine. Oh, like, so these, I could just build them in a big... Yeah, but it would probably take up more space and look ugly as fuck, though. What, do I really want it to look ugly as fuck? Wait, the turbines aren't even near the heat exchangers. It looks like shit now. Fuck you, Blackstar. You anti-fan too much in chat. You better watch it. You're coming in close on a ban. That fucking porn you emailed me, okay, isn't gonna save you.
Great. It is great. I'm so happy someone invented it. That's, I mean,
Low-level autism plus Adderall.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
I'm not accusing anyone of anything.
Yeah.
I just want to say, shout out to whoever made Adderall. Things get done.
Yeah.
They do things get done, but this is kind of the greatest pushback against like high-level conspiracy theories. You know, when people go, bro, they control everything.
Oh, and then the common sense is starting to come in. Is there going to be some sober moment where a whole bunch of these like conspiracy theorist guys are like, fuck, they're like, wait a second, was this shit just fucking retarded the whole time? Because they're joking about it, but like, there's a good degree of truth to this, right? Like, okay, hold on. The guys that are secretly controlling telecommunications, internet infrastructure, everything all across the world, you're telling me that when they retire, they have to go down, they've got to send a dude down the mine shaft? You're telling me that half of our government's pension plans got toast when they sent a 22-year-old down there and he lit a fucking cigarette and it exploded because of a gas? Those guys are controlling everything?
You're like, dude, they have a mine where they store stuff. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. It's like the perfect... Everybody thinks that everything is a giant plot, and some of it is just sheer incompetence and just years and years and years of monotony. You know, or just like the same stupid life over and over again, no oversight, rampant corruption everywhere. All the lobbyists are rich as fuck.
And then there's also, again, I'm not going to sit here and say government is perfect, okay? But I really wish sometimes they would bring in people from private sector jobs just to like talk about their jobs, because I feel like they feed into this delusional fantasy sometimes of like the hyper efficient private environment where, oh yeah, I work for a corporation and all of our stuff is fully up to date and I love all my middle managers and my boss is so cool and we never over order shit or do anything wasteful in the office, and you know, nobody shits for 45 minutes on company time and everybody's on their computer working constantly without mouse jigglers and everybody is 100% tuned in. Like every large organization has this problem, unless you're working in some fucking autismo startup with like 6 people, all right, where like 3 people are doing 95% of the work or whatever, and like everybody else is like on the ball because they all have huge, like every job is like this. Every large company is like this. Everybody has these problems. This is not a unique government thing.
I mean, look at this file line. Look at this. This is all the data.
Random question. Do you think a technocracy would be an actual good government if implemented correctly? I think it has the potential to be. I think it has the potential to be, but the head would have to be somebody. The problem is that people don't view politics, or they don't view management sometimes as an actual skill. So when they think technocracy, like there are people who are unironically tell you things like, oh, for like a software design environment, we should just get rid of all the managers and have it be only engineers. And then this would make it so things are so much better because management sucks or something like that, right? Or you might have, or you could have like management that thinks that like, you know, oh, we don't need any software developers. We can hire 2 junior devs for the cost of 1 senior dev and just give him AI and he'll do everything, right? Like you need all the different pieces, and you have to understand that there are skill sets that are being brought in from every different party, and that all these skill sets are pretty valuable. So if you approach the technocracy like that, where you're like, we need good scientists to do good research, we need good engineers to maintain the software, we need good bureaucrats to maintain like the fluidity of you know, the apparatus that keeps everything running. Like if you approach it like that, I think a technocracy, I guess, could be good. It just feels like people are very much buried in this world of whatever their specialty is. They think that that's the only type of specialized knowledge you need to run everything. That's what it feels like. I don't know how much of this we'll watch, but... Well, actually, hold on. We haven't watched our good friend Vaush in a long time.
Are you as abundance-pilled as I am? No, the abundance liberalism shit is a psyop, and you shouldn't fall for it.
Ooh. Ooh.
neoliberals have looked for like 1,000 different ways of rebranding because fundamentally their ideology has failed and is dead. Everyone is turning away from it at like a record speed. I literally found a tweet for this. Hold on. It's neoliberalism. It's supply side liberalism. It's the new left. It's third way. It's meritocracy. It's public-private partnerships. It's
Remember, whenever you feel upset and ass pained, like I'm feeling right now, that a socialist is talking like this, remember, okay, Das Kapital and Marxist philosophy wasn't saying that like we need to overthrow capitalism, that we need to do something to get to uproot this capital system. Marx said that capitalism will naturally lead to a socialist state of affairs, that it is inevitable that a capitalist system will collapse and it will eventually give way to a socialist system. And he believed that in the year like 1850, okay? So whenever these guys are shitting on your system, remember, their leader, who's been dead for over 100 years, okay, he thought that socialism would inevitably come from the death throes of capitalism, okay? And he thought that 200 years ago, so fuck him.
Corporate social responsibility. It's pragmatic liberalism. It's growth and fairness economy. It's popularism. It's opportunity economy. It's abundance liberalism. It's the same thing. It's always the same thing. Can you quickly sum up neoliberalism, please? Neoliberalism is when there's some...
What's he gonna say? Fuck, I haven't listened to Vaush in so long, so I can't predict his talking points so much. Neoliberalism is when rich people get really rich, but they give you slightly shinier products to try to convince you that you're doing as good as they are. Something like that.
Something, and I don't like it, is the main thing.
Oh,
I thought that was fascism. Well, you repeat yourself. The abundance liberal thing is a complete psyop. It's a complete psyop. Article from the fucking Economist. Okay, like neoliberals recognize everyone hates them. So what do we do to rebrand in opposition to Trump's current administration? Well, Trump's current administration seems to be, funnily enough, all about austerity, right? Americans will face hardship, tariffs will increase the price of goods, eggs cost too much, inflation, etc., etc., etc. You will have less. So what if we rebrand it as like, no, actually, you know, Howard Lutnick thinks you shouldn't get cheap treats from China. I think you should get cheap treats from China. You know, I think that actually the market should be allowed to run in such a way that things stay cheap and you get whatever you want. But it doesn't fix the underlying problems at all, because what they're arguing for, unfettered markets, free trade, etc., is what we've been doing for decades. Like what they're arguing for basically is, well, what if we did NAFTA and didn't have tariffs? And it's like, well, we had that for years.
Why does Jesse not watch Vaush for so long? I think because Vaush is another one of my creations. Vaush largely inherited my based stance on not saying America bad all the time. So I think we mostly agreed on like Ukraine, so we didn't watch him there. And then he's kind of been in his own little world. He had like the Fortress arc. So he just kind of like does his own thing. So he doesn't like intersect with the other political world too much. So we just don't watch as much.
And then we got Trump. We literally did that, and it created the conditions that produced this mess. Hold on, I found a Fox 5 on this. What is an abundance liberal? Fox 5, Washington, D.C. Please, just, why not? Pitch it at me.
My guest is the editor-in-chief of Washington Monthly and a former speechwriter for President Bill Clinton. His latest piece, The Meager Agenda of Abundance Liberals, explores...
Of course it would be a former speechwriter of Bill Clinton.
The challenges facing progressive policymakers after their disastrous 2024 election. Paul Glaster's up late with me tonight again here on The Final.
But I mean, don't socialists literally argue everyone can have free healthcare, have the same quality of life, same consumer goods, free housing, etc.? All we have to do is tax the rich and let workers own the means of production. They kind of do. This is one of the reasons why I appreciated when Richard Wolff said it, because at least he was honest about it. Didn't Richard Wolff say something along the lines of like, you might not get that PS5 as quickly as you want or something? At least he was honest about it, you know? Pretty sure he doubled down on the Fortress arc. Yeah, I think he did. But I mean, ultimately it worked out for him. If the direction he wanted to take his content was just kind of doing these, because I think he streams less now, and he doesn't do like debates or anything with any other people. But like, I think his live viewership is generally pretty good, and I think his monthly views are pretty good. So I mean, it's working out for him.
905. Paul, welcome.
Was that a joke? No, it wasn't a joke. Somebody can go find the clever video if you want. Wait, how many of these do I need? 86. Stop. 84.
Back to the show.
Jim, my friend, glad to be back.
What is an abundance liberal?
There's a whole group of writers and think tank scholars who are arguing that if we get rid of government red tape, things like zoning restrictions, environmental statutes, that we can have abundance, we can have more housing, more green energy, cheaper, quicker transportation projects, lower healthcare costs. People like Ezra Klein of the New York Times, Matt Iglesias, the
just great
Substack
stuff.
writer, a lot of people at The Atlantic like Yoni Applebaum.
Me, when I'm pitching a brand new style of liberalism that'll definitely work. Ezra Klein and Matt Iglesias. Obviously.
Groups like the Niskanen Center. This is their big thing, and they're making a big push, and they're getting a whole lot of attention in the media and from Democratic donors and elected officials.
Right before I came in here to talk with you, I saw Ezra Klein up on one of the cable networks. Here's the thing. What you're talking about in the piece.
All right, final question to you, Professor Wolf. Under your system of worker cooperatives, would I still get my PlayStation 5?
Absolutely. You'd have to struggle a little bit for it. You'd have to talk to your fellow workers. You'd have to talk about the distribution of income. You'd have to compare your desire for PlayStation against all the other interests of all the other people. It wouldn't be something you worked out on your own with your particular boss in any way. It would have to be a democratic decision. You'd have to come to terms with that the way you do with democratic decisions now in our society to the extent that we have them. And I would like to add only that if Steve is interested, he could also look at the experience with COVID that the Cubans had, because it is in many ways even better than the ones that the Vietnamese had.
Cubans are built different. Because the vast majority they get aborted, so only the strongest of the Cuban race survives. I'm not joking. Their abortion rates are by far the highest in the world.
Here, the progressives today, and you kind of laid that out. They're
eugenics.
focusing more on removing barriers than actively shaping what economic policy should look like.
Because again, they're just neoliberals. They're just more neoliberal. It's just the same neoliberals. They're just coming up with a new term for it. It's the exact same thing. It's the same thing. But I see people talk. I think it's mostly a meme. It's mostly a buzzword. But let this serve as a broader warning. Don't let liberals take the reins of what is happening here. Don't let liberals be the ones to define for you what went wrong and what needs to happen. These are the same people who think that Bernie Sanders represents a naive, antiquated form of political thought that no longer has a place in DC. Like, these are the same people who think that progressives are at best naive and at worst are just as bad as the MAGA Republicans. These are the people who created the problems that we're experiencing right now, created the conditions, nullified the Democrats so they're unable to do anything about Trump. They're not our friends.
Wow.
How is this different from Democrats we've seen in the past, from President Clinton, from President Obama, others?
I think it's got some similarities to what you saw in the Clinton administration with.
How is this different from neoliberalism? Well, funny you asked. It actually has a lot in common with neoliberalism. Now, so first of all, I must acknowledge, it's pretty much just...
I guess like the frustrating thing is, I'm curious if you were to ask somebody like Vaush might, because he's not as dumb or bad faith as the rest of them. Like if you were to ask some of these people, like, did we get anything good from capitalism? I think they would say, yeah, there were some good things maybe. So I feel like the next step should be, okay, well, how do we figure out how to get those good things while minimizing some of the bad things? Like, is there a way to do that? Wouldn't this be like the way to go, maybe? I can use the restroom 1 sec.
reinventing government, taking away procedural barriers that keep civil servants from doing their jobs, deregulation of the airline industry and the trucking industry under Jimmy Carter, the financial industry. I think there's a lot of overlap between past Democratic administrations and what these folks are talking about, and that's why they're hitting a nerve. A lot of Democratic donors and elected officials are feeling like the Biden administration was too far left, and
I'm on a 10-minute delay, but a private tech company hired me as an intern when I was in uni and had me digitize their personnel files, and I did it all incorrectly, and no one noticed or did any oversight. Why'd you fuck it up? What?
Feeling like the Biden administration was too far left, and
Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus Christ.
That deregulation might be a way forward.
Would you imagine, in your time when you...
By the way, the reason they call this...
It sucks that this guy is describing it this way, and I know Vaush is going to attack it this way, but like describing these the abundance guys as like just deregulation, I really don't like that framing, because typically when you say deregulation, the implication is you're talking about like lower taxes or just making it easier for, I guess, billionaires or whatever to make money. When in reality, the deregulation that they're talking about isn't really deregulation. It's just making the state run more efficiently, right? So when they talk about deregulation, they're saying, like, what do we need to get out of the way? Like, what bureaucratic red tape is there that's keeping us from finishing rail in California? Or why can't we run, some of these state programs more effectively or efficiently? Or why can't we build more housing or zone for more housing or upzone for more housing? Like, why can't we do public transport in all of our cities? This is the type of regulatory stuff they're talking about, not like, how do we lower taxes and make it easier for billionaires or huge businesses to like destroy the environment,
Abundance liberalism is because they are cynical and they...
Do you ever think that free trade might make it easier for people to ignore worker rights for maximum profit by making products in the third world and selling to the first and collecting the difference between the third world wages and the first world consumer market? Not generally. I think generally, empirically, free trade tends to be better for workers in other markets, because usually what will happen is when you're carving these trade agreements, you don't want your domestic manufacturing to be so grossly non-competitive that you usually advocate for worker rights on the countries that you're negotiating against. Now, that might sound like a capitalist pipe dream, and I'm not saying corporations do it out of the goodness of their heart, but I know that Vietnam was on the verge of some of their largest labor reforms ever in order to comply with the standards that were being set by the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, that deal ended up not coming into existence for a variety of reasons, but typically when you're engaged in these big bilateral or multilateral trade agreements, you usually are trying to make it so that the workers on the other side are being taken care of better, because it's usually a bit of a disadvantage for the corporate entity there, which usually advantages your own domestic manufacturing.
They hate you, and they chose that term to mimic the style of left populist rhetoric. Okay. Like they are deliberately dishonest. Yeah, it's a bait and switch. They chose that term because they want some of the clout of the actual left-leaning people who are making arguments in favor of like Medicare for all or whatever, when in reality they're to the right of most Democrats.
Worked with President Clinton, that somebody like Joe Biden would be considered to be too far left, too progressive?
No. And never did I imagine that I, the editor of the Washington Monthly, a moderate publication, that it favors taking on corporate power and interests and is a little bit suspicious of this whole deregulatory move, would be considered a left-wing guy, because, that's not what the magazine has been. That's not what I was been. But today, our critique of this whole abundance liberal thing is, even if you did everything that they said, it would not.
When you're talking about stuff that you think that is controversial, do you ever think about clips that are going to go around and adjust your speech based on that? If I'm talking about like a super hairy topic, maybe. But at this point in my career, I kind of acknowledge that you can't protect yourself from all the clipping. So, you just kind of roll with the memes.
Not move the needle much to bring us more housing, more affordable energy, that we have bigger problems than that. I think they're right about the reform agenda. They're just very narrow in what they would do. They're kind of...
Destiny caught up. Unironically, I fucked it up because I didn't realize you could scan docs together, so I was scanning them all as separate one-page PDFs. Nice. I'm almost done with a server farm downstairs in my studio. I've chained together like 50 different, I think there are 4090s, so that one day, once this is all connected and up and running, I'll be able to run Adobe and edit and play with PDFs without it lagging like a motherfucker. Holy shit. How do we not have an alternative format to PDF yet? Fuck that file format and fuck Adobe.
Afraid to go after the real problem, which is this combination of oligarchic control of the economy meets conservative destruction of the government. That's what we're actually experiencing now, and getting rid of unnecessary procedures is helpful but not sufficient.
All right, so
there is an element of truth to this. Sean just donated on that. We can hate on neoliberalism, but Ezra Klein's right about this. He's not arguing for unfettered free markets. He's pointing out the Dems' response has often been bad regulation.
True.
Horrendous zoning laws is one of the primary reasons we have a shortage of housing, but no one wants to fix it because housing price will crash. That is true, but like the problem with this is that all like these high-minded efforts to address...
That's never happening, Destiny. Adobe is a curse on humanity. The problem is that Steve Jobs died too early. We need to make Demolition Man, where Steve Jobs is brought back to life, okay? He killed Flash when he was alive. He didn't have enough time to kill PDFs. If we would have just had him for 5 more years, maybe he could have gone after him. Maybe.
Things like bad housing policy will ultimately run up against like a big enemy that abundance liberals are never willing to deal with. And that's corpos. Like, at the end of the day, they answer to wealth. You can talk a big game about being willing to really take on the challenges with the housing industry, bring down housing costs, whatever else. Corporations will inflate those housing prices as much as they can get away with. You might be able to do in Austin, Texas, and bring rent down on aggregate 16% over the course of 5 years by building a bunch of new housing. But don't worry, those rents will go right back up. You're fighting an uphill battle against an enemy.
I have a Vaush-like friend that recently rallied against Trump's tariffs while saying his tariffs are an extension of Reaganomics. Yeah, I mean, like, could I say? I'm trying to think, because when I think of like who would be allowed in the coalition, Vaush, I believe, is an actual like light socialist, and I think we can probably break bread, maybe I think, with like socialist light types, but not with ML types. Not with the Marxist-Leninists. So like the Hasan types are too far, too anti-liberal, too authoritarian. They are not allowed. They're not invited to the cookout, okay? But I think the Vaush types, like the light socialist types, I think are. Wait, so these pumps now, this one water thing will fuel all of this? It's good? How many times did Vaush betray you? Well, I'm not talking about him personally. I'm just meaning like this political ideology.
Much more powerful than you, you know. And we're at a crucial. We're at like a boiling point here now, because now the capital class has mobilized so aggressively and so openly and so malevolently against the interests of the average American in the form of this like open oligarchy. It's no longer acceptable to pretend that we can just make marginal tweaks around the edges. You need like a
This is like the thing that irritates me so much, and it makes me miss the progressives with the multidimensional analysis of like, why do people feel the way that they do? It's not just class. It has never been just class. That's so one-dimensional. You're in a country that Oh, well, this is a really old argument, but somebody in chat asked me earlier, what's a debate where you had your mind changed a lot since you feel like you're right on everything, blah, blah. One thing that I debated a guy, I think it's a guy I don't even like anymore. Was it, fuck. Hold on, I'm trying to think of who it was. It was the black guy who played piano. I want to say Phalanx, but it's not Phalanx. Fuck, what the fuck was his name? Somebody say it. Fanatic. That was it. It was either Fanatic or it was somebody else I debated. It might not have been. It might have been somebody else who brought up the idea that like America invented black. as like a category of like skin color, which the face of that argument, it sounds fucking absurd. And I think he didn't phrase it in the most eloquent way, but it is actually true that I think America for the first time invented these very rigid concepts of whiteness and blackness, and that there is an interesting progressive analysis where white was created as a category, especially in America, as a means of excluding people, right? If you're white, you're all right. If you're not, then you're snot. I can't think of a clever phrase, right? But like Italians and Irishmen, when they were finally included in the categories of white, they were cool, and everybody who's not white is not cool. But like this type of analysis falls apart. You can't like critically analyze economic relationships in the United States if you only focus on class, right? If you only focus on class, the Tulsa race riots, you know, wouldn't happen. Black Wall Street wouldn't be destroyed because these people have money. Why the fuck would you destroy people with money, right? The capital class should move in and do something about that, but they won't, because there are other drivers to people besides just class and just money. And I feel like the early progressive ideology with regards to intersectionality kind of like had this more right than the socialists or the Marxist-Leninists that'll come up now like, it's all about class and capital and the bourgeois. And it's like, I don't think so. It's too oversimplified. If a technocracy could work with people staying within their specializations to maximize efficiency and productivity, can we implement Plato's idea of having a trained political class / trade? Maybe, who knows? Thanks, Baggy Sky 97. I'll read that book right now on stream. Thank you for linking this book. I got it. Thank you. How many pages is it? Hopefully less than 500. Well, let's go. Thank you.
Front. And I agree, like, neoliberals aren't bad because they've never had good policy propositions. As a matter of fact, neoliberals, or I guess liberals broadly, often know more about policy wonkery than leftists do, which has always been a weakness of the left. My issue with them isn't necessarily the policy tweaking. My issue is that all of that policy tweaking is ultimately subservient to a larger class dynamic, which they refuse to fight. You know what I mean? Yes, 100% agree. You can't affect a lot of these changes until you remove big business from policymaking. Yeah, okay. I agree with you completely. But I am willing to acknowledge the importance of, like, addressing zoning laws. Holy shit, the Abundance Liberal Conference was sponsored by...
Wait, this is a troll tweet, right? Hold on. It's okay. That's good for us. No. That's good for us. That's good for us. That's good for us, guys. That's good for us. You guys should be happy, okay? If Aiden Ross got unbanned, then certainly my unban is on the way, okay? We're up bigly right now, guys. We're up so big. We're up so big, okay?
by venture capitalists in a co-brother created...
Have you submitted your appeal? Okay, I submitted a joke appeal like 2 weeks ago, but they haven't denied it yet, which is interesting because normally they deny them instantaneously. But so, you know, who knows? We'll see. Now I feel like I shouldn't have written a joke appeal though, so...
Nonprofit? Yeah, sounds about right. The new centrist push to regain control of the Democratic Party. You know, Will Stansel was on Twitter saying he doesn't like this abundance liberal shit. That, to me, that's like a... That's a canary in the coal mine, ain't it? Right there. Like, if you have even the big hitter liberals...
Oh, that's such a good point. You can prove Destiny's point here by asking why trickle-down economics is nonsense, but Trump's tariffs will raise prices even though they're taxed on the company. Yeah, if we think that trickle-down economics is real, where companies will pass down their good fortunes to their workers, then shouldn't tariffs mean they'll pass down the cost to their workers and customers too? Why would we expect them to give away their winnings in the form of tax cuts, but eat their losses in the form of tariffs, right? Yeah, I don't know.
In the coal mine, ain't it? Right there.
The joke appeal isn't it a joke that you'll get unbanned, or were you actually memeing in the appeal? I just copied the script at the end of The Matrix 3, where Neo says that he's the only one who can kill Agent Smith, but I replaced Neo with me and Agent Smith with Asmongold. So, good luck.
There. Like, if you have even the big hitter liberals, the big hitter, like, posters, being like, no, I don't think so. You will get the commie blocks, and you will thank us for them when we decommodify housing. Here, I want to finish this. just seen too much buzz. It's a very online thing, but it's just.
I know I used to repeat this talking point. I'll say it again, okay? And maybe there was something I was misunderstanding, okay? But the European country that I probably know maybe the most about maybe is probably Sweden, obviously because my ex-wife's from Sweden. The thing that I used to hear from her is that so they have forms of public housing. I believe that every single person in Sweden, I think, is guaranteed some sort of very low rent place to live. However, I think the way that she would say this in English is she'd call these contracts. However, if you wanted to live in a place like Stockholm, the wait list for that shit is like 20 years. Unironically, it's like 20 years long in order to inherit or get a contract or to be assigned to a place to live here. So you could go live in some random fuck place nobody cares about. But if you want to live in any of the big cities, you're waiting over a decade to get to it. So it's like, yeah.
Important to not let these backstabbers get in the way of actual solution making, you know?
So what are some of the policies that you think that they should be pushing towards that maybe they're missing? Because we've heard from the likes of Pete Buttigieg, who had said that he thinks that there's too much focus on identity politics within the party.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's somebody who may have his eyes towards 2028. I mean, what is the current crop of Democrats? What are they missing in this conversation?
Look, 10 to 30% of Americans are self-employed. They are contractors. They're
Wait, hold on. What? I'm sorry.
Look, 10 to 30%.
First of all, that's a huge range. 10 to 30%. That's a big range, number one. I might believe that on the lower end, that like 5 to 10% are self-employed, because that's going to include, I think, every single Uber and DoorDash person. And it might include a lot of people that do trade work. I don't know how common it is for them to be employed by a company versus just to be contractors, but...
of Americans are self-employed. They are contractors. They're gig workers. They're Uber drivers. Neither party does anything to help those folks, to market to them. They look more and more like America. They are the base of the Democratic Party.
I don't know if anybody has more solid numbers on this, but I always feel like the gig work thing is just dramatically overemphasized. It's nowhere near as popular or as common as people say that it is, but I don't know, man. I could be wrong.
Democrats barely talked about them, and they're being crushed by both a lack of support from welfare, from social.
Didn't Biden's labor or the NLRB, didn't they extend additional protect? No, there was a Biden era push for like the recognition of like Uber drivers.
Self-employed workers, non-ag industry. Is this in millions? Thousands. Okay. Yeah, okay. That's what I meant. Sorry, not in millions, because that would be 6 billion people or whatever. So in thousands, does that mean that there were 6 million self-employed workers? If this is in thousands, that's what this would mean, right? Oh, holy shit. Wait, I'm sorry. I just realized how far back this chart went. So the number of gig workers, or the number of self-employed workers we've had, has been steady basically since we started measuring it, since 1946. This new chart is ratio to total employees. What? This is just thousands of persons. Oh, you linked something different. Oh yeah, and if anything, the ratio I imagine we're going to see go down. Yeah. Because adding people to the workforce. Huh. Okay, so this like huge gig economy or whatever, I don't think this is real. I've never seen numbers to substantiate this. I just don't think this is a real thing.
Drivers as workers rather than contractors. And there's been a push for that broadly. Now, I agree. The abuse of contractors is a real problem with our economy.
It's not.
Welfare,
it's a problem insofar as like people are abusing them. That's bad, but I don't think it's like a widespread huge thing or whatever. In the entirety of Europe, there is social housing. The problem is that there is not social housing enough build. People who earn a lot stay too long in social housing. Refugees are getting priority. These factors are what cause the following effect. You want a social house. In my country, 11-year waiting period. Since refugees get to skip the line, it's a major reason of the rise of the right wing, anti-immigration stuff in Europe. Don't they usually put all the refugees in a certain area, though? I don't think they just ship them into any open housing unit, no? In European countries? I could be wrong on that. But my understanding is usually they're all like in the same kind of area. But one thing you have to consider, too, if you're European, your guys' standards for housing are way different than American standards for housing. Like it feels like the average American college grad feels like they should be able to own a house in a major city by the time they're 25. And I think in Europe, people don't expect to own houses in major cities unless they're either absurdly wealthy in retirement or like on the very, 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 very far outskirts or like in a different city. And then in terms of like the sizes for housing and everything too, I think Americans just have way different expectations than Europeans generally.
They're taxed higher and they don't get the benefits that employees get, and they're being crushed by monopolists and tech platforms that they work for. The average somebody selling products on Amazon has seen their fees go up from 10% to 30%. These people need help. Democrats should be their champions. You know, we need healthcare reform where we can regulate the prices that are paid to conglomerate monopoly healthcare providers that could boost the incomes of the average family $2,000-3,000 right off the bat.
This is corporatism, not capitalism argument. Yeah, also you're really arguing around the margins. Like again, the country is being raped to death by oligarchs. I like the fundamental solution here is not like reform of contracting law. I agree that should be a part of it, but it matters a lot what you define as the central solution. And I'm sorry, like these days, the lines are really clear.
Do you actually think there's a lot of racism in the EU right now, or is it mostly overblown? There is, but it's like, it's different. Like people's motivations to be racist and everything it's a lot different. The way that racism manifests in different European countries is also different as well, right? Like, I think, like, Italians and Spaniards are racist against, like, fucking old bongers that go down during vacation or retirement. Or everybody in the West will be racist against, like, Poles or people coming from Eastern European for seasonal work. Or people, especially in Central and Southern Europe, are racist against, like, Romani people because they, you know, walk around with dead children begging for money. It's just, like, insane shit. Or, like, it's just a whole bunch of... Or people in the Balkans are racist against anybody that lives within, you know, 15 miles of them. I'm just kidding. Like, it's just different. It is an issue. I think the biggest issue that I've heard people keep bringing up, is it Denmark as an example of this, where the far right hasn't able to gain a foothold? One of the problems in Europe for a while, and maybe it was progressive ideology that fucked with this, was an unwillingness of people on the left to give voice to grievances around immigration issues. And trying to bury them and ignore them and not ever confront them doesn't work. You could argue that Biden did similarly with the border in the United States, like just wasn't giving voice to the issue enough. Because when you don't talk about it, you see that issue to the other side and you let them claim it. So
you can't stand up and say the problem with our society is like oligarchy, capitalism, unfettered power of the capital class, then I don't fuck with you. It's just really obvious now is the thing. Even liberals are saying it. Even liberal politicians, not far-left Democrats, but moderate Democrats, are going up there and saying, like, oligarchy's out of control, these ultra-wealthy people are buying power, Trump's cabinet of billionaires, Elon Musk, shadow president, et cetera, et cetera. And I know those people aren't socialists, but at the very least, yeah, this guy did acknowledge it, by the way, with the oligarchy. But, like, do you think that's going to be fixed by addressing contracting law? Maybe that'd be nice, but I wouldn't define an ideology around it, you know? Like I'm a huge proponent of reforming zoning laws in many, I suppose, all American cities to whatever extent possible.
Okay, fuck. Should I just read the wiki? Is the way that you go to other planets is to add a space platform and then shoot that space platform over to another planet? Is that how you're supposed to do it? Or am I supposed to like launch a rocket with me to go to the other planet? Space platforms are trains in space. You need thrusters and shit on the platform. Okay, do I ever go to the other planet? Put engines on a space platform. Okay.
Possible. But if I created a political movement called like abundance, you know, urbanism, and defined it in opposition to progressive leftism, wouldn't I be doing everyone a disservice? Could leftist thought not incorporate reform of contracting law, the abuse of workers? Because it already does. Left progressives already talk about, you know, contractors not getting the benefits of employees, corporations abusing contractor law. They actually...
I fucking hate how right-wing moved the responsibility for immigration mishaps on left-wing when they were in the fucking government. Oh, I can't speak to any European problems with any degree of specificity because I don't follow European shit. And I try not to speak about shit I'm fucking clueless on, so...
They debated this
I try not
on
to.
Breaking Points.
Sometimes.
We
have to.
Joining us now, great friend of the show, Jarek Thompson, and he is out with the new...
Holy shit. Mark Zuckerberg, after he stops out of, or gets out of the fucking human redesign box, that's him in the middle.
Book, which is just seemingly everywhere, Abundance, that he co-authored with Ezra Klein. So the theme of the book is, quote, to trace the history of the 21st century so far, to trace the history of unaffordability and shortage after years of refusing to build sufficient housing. America has a national housing crisis. He goes on that Abundance explains our problems today are not the results of yesteryear's villains, rather one generation.
Yo, so that one guy is just completely full of shit, huh? The Live Forever guy. I feel like I've seen more and more stuff from him that just makes me question. It seemed like he had like a cool idea initially, and I'm always a big fan of people who turn stuff over to science for more research, but it seems really cringe. Wait, why the fuck did you take that out? Fuck you.
Generation solutions have become the next generation's problems. The book actually seeks to put forward some solutions. So, Derek, just at the top here, for people who aren't familiar with abundance discourse, there's been quite a bit here that is online. First, just tell us like why you...
It's the creepy guy who talked about his son's erections at night. Oh, he talked to Dr. Mike?
I think initially we met because I think you were talking shit about me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I made a nice comment in return.
It was an incredibly awesome move.
Today I'm joined by Dr. Mike Israetel, who has...
Holy shit. This guy is supposedly trying to optimize his life to be able to live forever because he thinks we're at a point in history where we might be able to live forever, which maybe is true. I don't know. But it sounds like he's like giving more and more into kind of like weird pseudoscience-y things, so...
You guys felt compelled to write the book, and then how
I just want to watch a bit.
The book, how the book is intended to be received. Is it a Project 2025? Is it a political answer? Is it all of the above? What is your guys' conception of it?
It's a great question. I love this way at the beginning. So we started writing this book 2.5 years ago when we were motivated by and scandalized by exactly what you said, the crises of manufactured scarcity in the 21st century. Why aren't there enough homes? Why isn't there enough clean energy? Why is governance often in blue cities and blue states so bad that it seems to...
Capital. The answer to all these things is unambiguously capital. Real estate holders, both...
Really makes you think 1 year ago today, Trump killed the border bill, but now that he's an officer, zero talk about passing a border bill. Really makes you think if Trump cares about the border. Well, that's why I said before, and again, conservatives got mad at me, but like illegal immigration is just not that big of a problem in the United States. Same thing with trans athletes. It's just not that big of a problem. But they message on it really well, and then they run on it, and people think it's a huge thing, but no.
Private and like personal and corporate want to maintain the value of the properties they hold. So there's an incentive towards artificial scarcity, reinforced by zoning laws that are controlled at a municipal level, which they incentivize heavily in their direction. Likewise, like a lack of abundance of green energy, literally subsidies. Literally just subsidies. Like the relationship between fossil fuel companies in Washington is so well documented and so extensive and so blatant. Trump's drill baby drill. Like you can't fix that with wonkery, right? Like policy wonkery. You're not going to go into DC and go like, well, what if we made green energy cheap and affordable everywhere? You would instantly have like the political spectrum would descend upon you because of all the money that backs fossil fuels. Like that's the point, right? We have an enemy here. Also, yeah, this chair is absolutely massive now that I look at it.
To be driving many people away. Why doesn't the Democratic Party have an invention agenda, given how central science and technology are to human progress? These are the questions that really animated the project.
But technological progress isn't what we need right now. Well, it's always good, don't get me wrong. We need social progress. We have incredible medicine and a record number of homeless people sleeping underneath overpasses. We have unimaginable wealth concentrated in our cities. Meanwhile, Appalachia dies with nothing to support.
Oh, this will go right to Volcanus?
The problem we face...
Wait. Will this go right to Volcanus, or do I need to build this over Novice? Because it'll try to travel there and it'll blow up.
Isn't one of like a lack of technological...
Do you still hate Vaush? As a colleague or like politically? Probably not. Personally, kind of, yeah. Until he apologizes for lying about me. Rockets only go to the planet they orbit. Well, then what happens if I pick to go to a different planet? What'll happen? Go to Gleba first, then Volcanus. It's easier. Volcanus is going to let me unlock cliff explosives, which I need because look at these cliffs. This is the worst thing in Factorio. I can't believe they didn't get rid of these. What a horrible thing to have in this fucking game. Cliffs. And look at these cliffs.
Supported. Like the problem we face isn't one of like a lack of technological, like, yeah, okay, we get it, everyone has a smartphone in their pocket now, but a lot of people in America today still are food insecure. This inequality is the issue, and that's a social problem. You're not going to technology your way out of this.
But I think it's really important to ground the fact that the book came out in March 2025, because you look back over the last 6 months of news. Why did Donald Trump just win the election? If you ask Pew, if you ask Gallup, if you ask David Shore and the 28 million people that he surveyed, the answer is all the same. It's affordability.
How can you say you're okay with Vaush politically when he's one of the major voices claiming Palestinians are being genocided? I don't think I can virtue signal along the Israel-Palestine thing, because then I literally have no political allies fucking ever. So we just bury our head in the sand and we ignore. Same thing with Kyle Kalinske. We just try to ignore the Israel-Palestine stuff. The Israel-Palestine is just where all intellectual thought goes to die. So, and you know what? At this point, the Jews only have themselves to blame. So fuck it.
Affordability. People feel like there's an affordability crisis in this country.
I also just don't agree with this. I think that overwhelmingly it's about dissatisfaction with the current system, and people will believe any narrative that they're presented as an explanation for why. It's about media control. It's about dissatisfaction. It's about ennui. I don't think it's fundamentally about affordability. You know, in terms of like purchasing power parity, Americans are.
What do you mean the Jews only have themselves to blame? That makes no sense and sounds like victim blaming. Well, it makes sense because the Jews do a lot of stupid fucking shit in Israel right now. They fucked up. They did fuck up a few times in that Gaza war, and they don't do themselves any favors when it comes to international messaging. And now Netanyahu has fucking gone unhinged. So, man, I don't know. They bring it on themselves.
Are exceptionally privileged. There are plenty of countries out there where people have not done this far-right shift, and they struggle to purchase stuff way more than we do. Our groceries are relatively cheap compared to a lot of countries out there.
Why do you care about having allies? Don't you take pride in not being bound by an ideology? I mean, individually, I do, but politically, that's not very effective unless I literally wanted to build my own political movement / party.
We're America. We're very, very wealthy. So I don't think it's that. I think people accept narratives that they're presented.
And the biggest part of anybody's budget is housing. So at the center of an affordability crisis is
So you're saying it's not about material conditions? No, I'm saying it's overwhelmingly about material conditions. But the propaganda atmosphere and the dissatisfaction with the status quo are material conditions.
Housing affordability crisis. You know, Donald Trump won because of an affordability crisis. And my feeling is he came into office and could have said, like, I'm going to govern as a Texan Republican. I'm going to make it as easy as possible for us to build homes. I'm going to do everything I can to drive down.
No, he's not. What are you talking about? He's not doing that. He's not doing that at all. What are you talking about?
Trump won because of an affordability crisis. And my feeling is he came into office and could have said, like, I'm going to govern as a Texan Republican. I'm going to make it as easy as possible for us to build homes. I'm going to do everything I can to drive down the...
No, he's not. What are you talking about? He's not doing that.
Oh, he
he's not.
misheard.
He's not doing that at all. What are you talking about?
Cost of housing. But instead, one of the first things he does is to raise tariffs on Mexico and Canada. That's a 25% bump on the cost of lumber and drywall gypsum, which we get from Mexico. The lumber comes from Canada. This is a plan to treat scarcity of housing with yet more scarcity. So I really want to emphasize and agree to which we strongly believe that there is a totally different way to think about growing the supply of the most important things in this country.
Why not try presenting yourself as a centrist as a way to fight back against the right-wing centrist cosplayers? In a time where there is a party that is like openly fascist, I would never market myself as a centrist. I don't think there is a compromise to be made with that political alignment. Maybe in a different political world, but...
Got it.
So you have a lot of critics on the left. You also have some fans on the left, but you have a lot of critics on the
He
left.
said he could have? Oh, I apologize. Then I misheard.
I'm not a hater of abundance, but my own assessment is that it misses some things, and maybe it's not meant to be a complete ideology, which is part of what I want you to respond to, because you know, with housing in particular, I'm in favor of a more YIMBY mindset of reducing these zoning regulations, et cetera. But we can put this tear sheet up on the screen, guys. Zephyr Teachant had, I think, a good response to the abundance, to your book and some of the ideas offered therein. And she says basically like, look, some of these things have been tried, and it hasn't really solved the problem. She points to a study from the Urban Institute of Land Use Reforms across 1,100 plus cities from 2000 to 2019, found that those sorts of reforms increase the housing.
We already have an abundance in food, yet people starve in America. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
People don't starve in America. That is fucking retarded. Please stop saying this. I understand that if you're middle class, you want to LARP like you're poor or like you've been poor in the United States, and so poor people starve to death, and so that's what you think the go-to is. Please stop saying this fucking retarded shit. Stop.
In terms of like the absolute availability of goods, we have essentially, functionally, infinite food in this country. If you talk about what we produce, like leaving aside the fact that like if a tomato doesn't look perfect, they don't send it out or whatever. Like, but even after that reduction, we have an insane amount of food in this country. We waste so much. There's still so much. We have infinite food. But there's still a lot of food insecurity, right? We're talking ultimately about social issues, inequality, not about the actual availability of goods. We're talking about food deserts, not about there not being food.
Oh,
you know?
Okay.
Supply by only 0.8% within 3 to 9 years of passage. So when I look at that, I think, okay, well, what is missing from this picture? And I think part of what is missing is this overall landscape of inequality, corporate consolidation of power.
But for housing, there legitimately isn't enough of that. Enough of it to an extent, and that usually comes down to municipal laws and zoning and what have you. And also, like,
is any of what he's saying here true? Do we have an abundance of food? I mean, in the United States, yeah, we probably have an abundance of almost everything, I would say. But it's a matter of like distribution and stuff. Well, I don't know if we have an abundance of almost everything. There's probably some stuff that everybody wants that we don't have an overabundance of. So stuff related to, for instance, healthcare, or like housing or whatever.
A desire to arbitrarily inflate the price of the existing units that are on the market, but also a lot of it is artificial scarcity being arbitrarily enforced by corporations. Do you have any idea how many empty apartment buildings there are in your city? I don't know where you live. Maybe you live in a place where there's basically no empty housing. You probably don't, though. You probably live in a place where there is empty housing. You take a look at the rents lately, there is an incentive for a lot of these landlords to keep the rent really high and wait for the high income earners to come in and pay for it.
That doesn't really make much sense. In a there are some ways in which this is kind of sort of true, but the reality is like rents will just be whatever the market can bear, for better or for worse. But
rather than lowering the rent to make it more broadly available to the people who already live in the area. This is why...
Like, if you lower the rent to make it more available to the people in the area, then you're still going to have them competing for other people coming in. And if you lower the rent for people in the area, you're going to have even more people in the area that are going to be competing for those, and outside of the area that are going to be competing for those same units, right? Like, nobody's just going to lower the rent out of the goodness of their heart. Yeah.
you have these problems like, say, for example, in Manhattan. I just went to New York City. Manhattan does have a lot of empty apartments. They're very expensive.
Manhattan does not have a lot of empty apartments. That's bullshit. None of these places like LA or none of these places, these are the most restrictive housing markets on the maybe on the planet, but in the United States. The idea that there are all these vacant areas or vacant apartments or vacant listings in place, like you can look up like vacancies in the United States and they're always the dimmest in the population. It's just not true. This is just like it's a myth that like landlords are these huge dragons that are hoarding housing stock waiting for some mythical buyer to come along. It's just not true.
I would struggle to afford them, you know, even though I'm a multi-billionaire for my...
Vaush would not struggle to live in any of these Manhattan apartments, unless you're talking like a crazy penthouse, maybe.
YouTubing practice. But is Manhattan not full of low-income people? Right?
No. I understand what he wants to say, but I'm pretty sure if you're low income, you probably live like in the Bronx or maybe Queens or over in New Jersey or something. I don't know where most of the poor people who would live or who would live around or work in Manhattan would be, but I don't think very many poor people live in Manhattan proper, no? My guess is they would live in a different borough.
Like, in Manhattan, are there not baristas? Janitors?
Yeah, but they take the subway in or they come into work, right? His argument would be, I think his argument, he doesn't have a bad argument. It would work for any other city in the United States, like Seattle or LA or San Francisco, but just for New York, just for New York, I don't think it applies, but...
Civil workers? Aren't there people who make 50, 60,000 a year or less in Manhattan? Of course there are. But they don't live in Manhattan. They have to commute in. And this is a problem because you create high demand areas where there's an incentive to keep the rent prices high enough that only the highest income earners, only the people who can...
Like, I don't know what the free market solution is for this particular problem. And it does seem like a real problem, right? That if you have an area where there is an ultra concentration of high paying jobs, how do you get people to live in that area who do the lower paying jobs, right? Let's say you have like the Gigafactory where you produce the best software and everything in the world. Everybody there makes like $250,000 a year. How do you also have people live there that, you know, serve coffee and do janitorial work and everything? I don't know I don't know how you balance that out. I actually have no idea.
Afford them, you know, are capable of moving in, then where does everyone else have to go?
Well, actually, never mind. That's a free market issue, and the free market should solve that. There should just be the companies. If people can't commute in because it's just too far, and they can't afford to live there, then the company should just offer more money for them. No, eventually that would be the equilibrium that would have to be reached at some point. If you're trying to get a barista to work at Facebook, but it's unaffordable to live near there and nobody applies to the job, eventually you just have to bump your wages up, no?
Well, they have to live like an...
Aren't people talking about the incoming recession destiny? Back-floating rate loans are about to mature, crippling many economic sectors. That and tariffs means we're fucked because gamers have already been in a recession. Our last generation of NVIDIA graphics cards were barely better than the one before. AMD is nowhere to be fucking found. Cases are shattering for no reason. The new 12-pin GPU cable is catching on fire everywhere. Gamers have already been in a depression for years, okay?
An hour out of the city, and that floods the MTA, that floods your roads because everyone has to commute in. Commute in. It's pretty fucked up.
Money in politics, because even when you strip away the regulations, guess what? The people who have money in this country are overwhelmingly the super rich. That's who companies want to cater to. You have massive consolidation within the industry of developers, so they're, you know, giant monopolies at this point. And so even with the regulations stripped away, they're like, yeah, but I'm going to build luxury mansions because that's...
Also, I just want to say, because I know that I've gone hard against her in the past, but Crystal Ball has been a dub factory for like a year now. Like, genuinely, every time I see anything from Crystal Ball, it's just W after W. So, you know, whatever. I'm fully... Every time I see Crystal Ball doing something, I'm like, yeah! I'm here for it. And Kyle, too. Well, of course. But yeah. I mean, Kyle and I have been on...
Part of the issue is every landlord uses a service that tells them what to set their rent at, and to keep them as subscribers, they bring rent up in an area year over year. This wasn't an issue as a service 15 years ago, but it's evolved into price setting via a middleman. That could be bad. I think there was actually a big lawsuit. I don't know what the status of that was alleging as much, that there were a ton of different property manager rental companies that were using something that was basically, it sounds like price fixing. Yeah, it's like a collusion behavior. So I don't know what the outcome of that was, but
good terms for a long time. I'm just saying, you know.
Who has the money? I'm going to build.
Oh, somebody says that's not true. Supreme Court went after that. Oh, so it was true, but the Supreme Court stopped it, or that's not true anymore?
Luxury condos. So that's who has the money. So, you know, do you mean for this to be a sort of like complete theory of what's going on? Or is it like, you know, this is one piece that we're looking at seriously that if Democrats get back in power, we have these governance pieces kind of ready to go?
One piece. It's such a good question. And there's so much there. I'm going to try to touch on as much of it as I can keep in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're trying to usher in a paradigm shift. We think that liberalism of the last 50 years has become consumed by process and not consumed by outcomes. And that's how you get a world where in San Francisco, if you want to build a new apartment building with public money, there are so many riders attached to that public money that in fact developers have essentially pulled out and said, we don't want to build social housing at all. It's a world where in 2021, when there was a development that was being discussed to put up at 500 units in a Nordstrom valet parking lot, 100 of which would have been below market rent. In fact, the Board of Supervisors of San Francisco voted it down because it didn't pass sufficient environmental review. There is a thicket of laws and reviews and customs that have grown up in the last 50 years. They're environmental laws, they're legal norms. Sometimes they're just a sense of empowered gentry, empowered homeowners who want to stop any new development that could
This is not incorrect, by the way.
Possibly threaten their home values. This set of rules and customs of laws has, I think, accumulated over the last 50 years without a sufficient counterpunch. We become so process obsessed that we haven't sort of cleared the brush and thought, wait, this is about building houses for people to live. You mentioned the fact that, you know, we live in a time, I think, of concerning income inequality, absolutely, and even incipient oligarchy. But I would frame it a little bit this way. Is oligarchy worse in Utah than in California? Is oligarchy worse in Texas than California? Is oligarchy worse in, say, Georgia than Massachusetts? Right? The problems of oligarchy are national, and yet we very clearly see that different cities and states have tremendously different outcomes when it comes to the ability to add housing.
So I would say...
Okay. So Crystal Ball asked him, like, is this an all-encompassing theory? And then his answer is essentially... like, the implied answer that he just gave is no, this addresses its own thing, but it's like, then how does this solve the oligarchy thing, is my point. Or I guess...
this guy is saying, but Vaush doesn't want to hear this, although I think Vaush is just misunderstanding or not, wasn't paying attention close enough. But it goes against Vaush's ideology. This guy is saying that we can't just, he's just co-opted from a streamer called Destiny. He's co-opted my message, where he's saying we can't just keep blaming the billionaires because why is it that we can build better in Utah or Arkansas than California? Are there more oligarchies? Are there more billionaires in Utah and Arkansas than there are in California and New York? Like, what's going on here, right, is what he's saying.
Yes, the capital accumulation thing. I don't understand the response, I suppose.
I would say, actually, to respond to that directly, I actually do think the problem of oligarchy is worse in a place like, or at least inequality, is worse in a city like San Francisco, New York, Miami, places that are magnets, not just domestically, but globally for the richest of the rich.
Okay.
You know, you end up with this sort of super class of people who can spend the millions and millions of dollars that it takes, and then an underclass of people who are there to serve them who can't afford rent. So I actually... which gets to another one of my questions to you, and one of the critiques that I've seen of the book and the paradigm shift contained therein, is that there's a couple of assumptions that are taken here. One is that the right way to organize our society is having these giant megalopolises, the San Franciscos, the LAs, the New Yorks of the world, where, you know, it wasn't always the case. We used to have thriving manufacturing and other industry throughout the country, so people were more widely spread out. Obviously, that helps with being able to afford housing because you just have a more dispersed population. That's number one. And then number two, related to that, is the focus too much on these cities? So, and this gets back to the question of whether this is governing agenda, a political, like electoral political agenda, or both? Because obviously, you know, Democrats have slid a little bit in the cities, but they still perform really well in these giant cities. We don't really need the Democratic Party to do better in San Francisco. So is the project also a little too focused on these giant
You got to be really, 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 really careful about that. Nobody's talking about this. Something that maybe isn't being spoken about enough is it was being spoken about in regards to minorities, that Democrats need to be very careful not to take for granted the people that they're doing well with. That was, in a way, the story with minorities and young people, especially young men. But I would also be very careful about your New Yorks and your Californias, because remember, like, everything in this country is closer than it seems. And some of these, I think New York went closer maybe than it has historically, or maybe than it ever has. Is be very, very, very careful about the arrogance of just assuming that you're going to have these voter populations forever. There's also this weird thing. A few of the DNC people I talked to said this, and I like this. There's this weird thing where when Democrats lose an area, it's just unwinnable, and they just give up on it completely and forever. And then conservatives are like setting the pace to fight in new areas. They're setting the pace to fight over, swing states, or maybe diving deeper into Florida, or Trump campaigning in New York, or setting their eyes on places that maybe traditionally weren't battleground states. We just have to be careful of that. But also, who the fuck cares? At the end of this, Trump is gone. Trump's not going to run again. The cult will fall apart. So, who knows? We'll figure it out.
Urban city centers and taking for granted that that's where the core of, American innovation and prosperity and just population density should really be.
I love this question. There's so much here. Let me try to consolidate it into an answer that matches everything you put on the table. Let's say the outcome that you cared about, because we believe in an outcome-based liberalism.
True. Oh my God! There's oh my shit. Okay. Before I was like a 1% meme. I'm at 5% now. I'm at 5%. But yes, I know exactly what he's about to say. That we should be attached, I've said this so many times, we should be attached to outcomes, not processes, okay? Rent control isn't good because it's rent control or whatever you think about it. It should be good because you think it lowers housing prices. And not even because lowering housing prices is necessarily good, but because it gets more people into houses, right? At the end of the day, we want there to be less homeless people and more people in homes that they can afford. That's the goal, right? We should be looking at outcomes, not moralizing the processes, right? True. True.
Let's say the outcome that you really cared about was income inequality. Well, of course, you would want there to be a tax and spend redistribution policy, right? You might want to expand the EITC. You might want to expand child tax credits. You might want to expand welfare. All of these are important. But if you're really interested in reducing inequality, I think you should be absolutely obsessed with urban housing policy. The Harvard economist Ross Chetty has pointed out that upward mobility in this country, when you build a map of it and see, who has the best chance of being born into a lower or working class and working their way into the upper middle class, it's in these cities. It's close to these cities. If we want to give more Americans a chance to move forward in their life, we should make it easier for people to live where they want to live, especially if those are some of the highest, most productive, most highly productive cities in the country. And in fact, Crystal, for much of the last century, this is how American migration worked. If you were working class, you would move closer to these cities, and it would benefit you because the housing cost wouldn't overwhelm the income benefits that you would gain from moving to a high-income place. But something has unwound very, very much in the last 50 years, where it's the cheapest places in the country that have the lowest upward mobility, and it's the most expensive places in the country that have the highest upward mobility. And so in a way you can say it's like the American dream has been torn apart. People have to
again, I'm waiting for like an in here. The problem is that he's correct. It's just that what he's describing is already a component of progressive urbanism and housing reform.
Is it though?
So it's like you're taking a holistic political movement and you're taking a little chunk of it and you're trying to break it off and you're trying to make it its own thing. Which and the implication of that being,
how many rockets I need
in an
to go to the next
oppositional
planet?
sense, like, oh no, we don't need progressivism.
15,000.
We just need to fix this. I'd love to fix that, but that's not enough. It's just a little portion. Sorry, I'm getting lost in the weeds here at this point. I'm basically just watching it. At what point did they say we don't need progressivism? It's the implication behind taking a chunk of economically progressive policy and defining a movement based on it. Also, we know for a fact, we know who Ezra Klein is, right? Like, we know which kinds of people favor this. Also, upward mobility.
I'm just kidding,
I don't want people to move up. I want people to be up by the
what? I don't want people to move up. I want people to be up.
Default. I don't. It's that meritocratic framing. You know, like opportunity economy shit that Kamala Harris was behind. I don't give a fuck about that.
Well, we probably should.
Opportunity economy. So you have the opportunity to do well. You should just do well.
Well, Americans like that. Believe it or not, even poor people like the idea of being able to work their way up. Like, I don't think nobody wants handouts. Even poor people don't want handouts. Like, people want the ability to work and to achieve and accomplish something, right?
By default.
Is there a way I can make this rocket hold more shit? Rocket capacity is 1 ton. That's cringe AF. Just build more rockets? Mega cringe, bro. You're mega cringe.